Republicans experienced a red wave up and down the ballot in several states last night. What is up, people of the internet? It is me, Real American, back again with a new video, and today it is time for a post-mortem of last night's elections because Republicans experienced success up and down the ballot last night, and not just in one or two contests. No. In nearly every single contest last night in every state, whether it was Georgia, Idaho, Kentucky, it doesn't matter. Republicans had major wins up and down the ballot, whether it was during a primary, whether it was during a runoff, whether it was a special, whatever it was, Republicans had very good success last night. Now, before we continue with today's video, I hope you enjoy these type of videos. If you do, smash the like button down below, subscribe, share with your friends, hit that little bell, follow the social media accounts in the description down below, and of course, join the channel today. Again, folks, all support is greatly appreciated, and yeah. Now, let us get into it because I cannot believe how bad of a night Democrats had. It was just pathetic. And let's start with Kentucky because this was the first sign that, alright, Democrats were going to have a pretty bad night. Just look at the presidential result. Biden barely cracked 70%. It was so bad that Uncommitted got 7 delegates, and there's a good chance they get like 2 or 3 more. This is undoubtedly one of Biden's worst states of this entire primary cycle. Barely cracking 70%. And look at some of these counties. He outright lost like 6 counties across the state. Floyd, Robertson, Union, Ballard, etc. He did awful. He didn't even crack 40% in many of these areas. Hell, there were many counties, especially in eastern Kentucky, that he couldn't even crack 50%. And he was barely cracking 40% in some of these other places. It was bad. Now, people are going to say, well, that's the ancestral Democrat. Yes, that's true. But these same people claim that if Trump couldn't get 99% of the vote on the Republican side, it was an underperformance. But now they're claiming, oh, Biden got 70% of the vote. That's actually a good thing because of ancestral Democrats. That might be the dumbest thing I've ever heard. He did awful in the entirety of Kentucky. I know he did the worst in eastern Kentucky. This is the part of the state that, yeah, you're going to see a big ancestral Democrat vote. But even places like Jefferson, he barely cracked 80% in. He did not do good in Kentucky at all. Hell, Fayette, which is Lexington, he barely cracked 80%. It wasn't good. Even the most friendly parts of the state to Biden, he wasn't getting good numbers in at all. Compare that with Trump, who got 85% of the vote, and his weakest counties was Fayette. He did not crack 70%, but that's his worst county. Nowhere, and I mean nowhere near as bad as what Biden did in most of the state. He was lucky to crack 70% in most of these areas. Hell, lucky to crack 50%. Now, as for other races that occurred last night, there really wasn't much of significance. Yeah, you had Thomas Massie fend off a primary challenge, which was not a surprise. Though it is funny seeing Apex spend like $3 million for them to lose by 60. As for the state legislature, nothing really happened. But I do gotta say there was a pretty big W for District 66. For those that don't know, TJ Roberts is the conservative choice here. He won by 50 points. He's a great guy. Go follow him. I don't usually talk about state legislator races because usually they're insignificant, but in this circumstance, he's such a great guy. I recommend people check him out. He's gonna be a great state legislator for District 66. And that's about it for Kentucky, but the results of the Democratic presidential primary were awful. I just cannot believe that he barely cracked 70%. But you think this was bad enough for Democrats. And I thought, okay, surely it cannot get any worse than this. Nope. Look what happened in Georgia. Look at this. The state Supreme Court election. The conservative won by 10 points. Look at the results in Clayton County. Pinson won by 2. You know, this is one of the most Democratic counties in Georgia. Yeah, he just won it by 2 points. Fulton County, lost by only 8. Granted, it is a Supreme Court election, but conservatives won by a landslide. They won by 10 points. And the reason I'm making a big deal about this is because the same people in the Wisconsin Supreme Court election last year, they were saying, this is proof that Wisconsin's safe Democrat. Yeah, those same people are saying this doesn't count. The conservative winning in Georgia by 10 points, it doesn't count because of whatever reason they're using. Listen, Supreme Court elections usually don't decide, or they don't correlate that much to federal races. They really don't, because it's more local, it's nonpartisan, and he was the incumbent, Andrew Pinson. But these people are complete hypocrites. They were saying a year ago, Protasewicz winning is proof Wisconsin is safe Democrat. Now they're saying, oh, Supreme Court races don't matter. These special election losers are suddenly saying, oh no, this is low turnout. Which, yeah, I agree with. But where the hell were you a year ago? Or hell, any other special election for the past 3 years? Where? Now it matters if turnout's low? Give me a break. You're just coping with the fact the conservative won by 10 points. That's an embarrassment for Democrats. It was a blowout. You don't do this bad in Fulton, DeKalb, Gwinnett, Cobb, etc. It was bad. Now, as for other races that occurred down the ballot, there was one notable Republican primary, District 3. And I gotta say, this might have been the only significant L of last night. Brian Jack more than likely is gonna win. And for those that don't know, Brian Jack is the Trump-endorsed candidate. The problem is, he's a complete rhino. This was a terrible endorsement by Trump, and well, he's gonna more than likely win, because look at that, he's at 47%. He's going to a runoff, and there's no way he loses. If he loses this race with the Trump endorsement and already being at 47%, that would be hilarious, but let's be real. He's gonna win this race. We're getting a major downgrade in this district. It sucks. Brian Jack is awful. Look him up. Big rhino. I don't get why Republicans, or I should say Trump endorsed him, support this guy. But it's still one of Trump's biggest problems. He's supporting garbage Republicans like Brian Jack. But it is the only significant L of the night. There really wasn't anything else bad that occurred for Republicans, but this was a seat that Republicans could have gotten someone way better in. But instead, we're getting stuck with a rhino like Brian Jack. But either way, Georgia was a good night for Republicans. They had decent results of the Supreme Court race. It's funny to see Democrats now coping about, oh, that's a low turnout race. Okay, yeah, where were you a year ago? But that wasn't the only race that occurred last night. You had results in Idaho. And Republicans almost took out Mike Simpson. And if Trump endorsed Scott Cleveland, we could have seen Mike Simpson go down. And for those that don't know, Mike Simpson is one of the worst Republicans in the House. Easily bottom 10, maybe even bottom 5. He is garbage, especially for Idaho's 2nd. You would think you would get a true conservative in this district, like an actual conservative. Nope. Mike Simpson is garbage, but either way, it's still funny to see him doing that badly, especially with the Trump endorsement, but who knows? Maybe we take him down in 2026. But down the ballot in Idaho for the state legislature, we had arguably some of the biggest wins of the night. We saw a bunch of rhino incumbents go down in flames, and there were a couple that survived, but a lot of them did go down. If they did win, they barely won. They won by like 2 points. A decent chunk of them did. But the ones that went down, they were awful. And there was like 6 or 7 incumbents that were rhinos that lost in the primary. For whatever reason, I still don't get this. Why in deep Republican states like Idaho, the legislators dominated by rhinos? Why? This is Idaho. This isn't, Oregon or Washington. This is a deep red state. But it appears Republicans there finally woke up and were able to take down a bunch of rhinos. Now, not every single rhino lost, but there were a bunch of them that did go down or came very close to losing. It was a very good night in Idaho. Granted, it could have been better if Mike Simpson lost, but I really don't consider that a loss because it's one of those races where Trump, even if he endorsed Cleveland, it might have been too late, but either way, Mike Simpson might go down in 2026. That's a positive thing. But what really matters is Republicans did get some big wins with actual conservatives down the ballot. Now, you would think, all right, this is surely where the good news would have ended. But nope, there was actually one more major win that occurred out in Oregon. But before we even get to that, I do gotta quickly mention the California 20th special. This is McCarthy's seat. Vince Vaughn did win. Very sad. It's a big L. He is a pretty big rhino from everything I could tell about the guy. But either way, we finally filled the seat that McCarthy used to occupy. I still don't get why he resigned early, but at least Republicans get an extra Republican in the House. I guess that's a net positive. But still, Vince Vaughn is not a good Republican. He's pretty bad from everything I could tell about the guy. But either way, that's what happened in California. It wasn't that surprising. Everyone kind of expected Vince Vaughn to win, but at least we filled the seat. That's the one positive I can gather from this. But there was truly a big W just north of California and Oregon. And not just any part of Oregon. No. This is Portland. You know, one of the most progressive cities in America. Yeah, this was the DA race. And guess what? The progressive incumbent, Mike Schmidt, went down in flames. Now, there still are a bunch of votes to be counted, but based on everything we're hearing, Mike Schmidt's gonna lose. And for those that don't know, Mike Schmidt is awful. He is an awful DA. Just look at Portland. He's not prosecuting any criminals. He's doing nothing. He's a worthless DA. And it's gotten so bad that Nathan Vasquez, from everything I tell, is I guess a former Republican, or at least he's an independent. Either way, he's much more moderate than Mike Schmidt. And you would think, oh, the progressives would vote for Schmidt over Vasquez. It's gotten so bad in Portland that the voters decided, you know what? We're going to vote for Vasquez, who is more moderate than an open progressive in Mike Schmidt. And not by a little bit, no, that he won by 12. It was a complete beatdown, but you may notice there's still a lot of votes outstanding. 37% of the votes are still uncounted. Are you kidding me? I cannot believe that there was like 2 races on the ballot last night in Oregon. There might have been a little bit more, but either way, it doesn't really matter. It's a low turnout primary, but these idiots cannot count the votes. Seriously, it's been, what, 12 hours since polls closed? Yet somehow, they've only counted 63% of the vote. The state of Florida has millions of voters, but they can count every single ballot within 3 hours. Maybe, it's at 95% by the time it's midnight. Maybe. Either way, they count virtually every single ballot on election night. But Oregon and these West Coast states, nope, they think, oh, we don't gotta count any vote. Nope, nothing. We're just gonna sit back and maybe count the votes in a week. It is pathetic, but I'm guessing that Mike Schmidt, okay. I'm assuming Mike Schmidt does go down in flames. I just don't see him coming back from this big of a deficit, even with, let's say, 40,000 votes outstanding. He would have to win like 75% of the outstanding votes. Is it possible? Maybe. But I think it's very unlikely. Either way, folks, last night was a very good night for Republicans up and down the ballot, whether it was in Kentucky, Georgia, Idaho, even Oregon. It was a very good night. If you guys did enjoy this video, smash the like button down below, subscribe, share with your friends, hit that little bell, follow the social media accounts in the description down below, and of course, join the channel today. Godspeed to all of you.